Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Bilal Abdul Kareem for On the Ground News. In recent months, we've had a few activists from East Turkistan to come to help us to understand what the situation is like in their home country. The stories, for some reason, haven't been getting that much traction. Well, it seems that some of the stories that the situation has taken a bit of a turn now, because it seems like the United Nations is actually recognizing what some activists, including the one who's going to be with us today, have been saying all along. So firstly, let me bring on my guest, and his name is Saleh Hudayr, and he is the International Affairs Officer of the Eastern Turkestan National Awakening Movement. And I'd like to say to you, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We want to thank you a lot for taking the time to come on. I know that you're busy, but I think our target audience really appreciates the fact that sometimes you have to tell them things more than one time before it starts to sink in. Could you please give us an indication in terms of what the situation in Eastern Turkestan is like currently?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me and thank everyone that's watching and listening to this. The situation today has drastically changed over the past few months. China has continued to build more so-called political re-education concentration camps. They built more crematory facilities, or burial management facilities as they like to call it. Right now, it's affected everyone, even government officials that have served, former government officials that have served the Communist Party for 30-40 years or all their lives are being targeted as this broad campaign to essentially eradicate the Uyghur and the Turkic and the Islamic identity of East Turkestan. Right now, according to the latest reports raised by the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination, they said that around 1 million, at least 1 million people are in so-called counter-terrorism / counter-extremism concentration camps, and a further 2 million are in so-called political re-education concentration camps.
Okay, now this is according to the United Nations report, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
And as I mentioned before, China, like even in the report, it says that China is, like, a lot of people are dying, and that's reports of deaths have emerged, but nothing, in terms of the bodies being returned to their families, nothing like that is happening. Instead, their bodies are being burned, cremated in these facilities, and we don't know. China is trying to, and in one way, hide the evidence. And last night, actually, I was reading the report that the Chinese government mouthpiece, though they haven't officially came out and said anything, Chinese government mouthpiece Global Times stated that by having a repressive policy and by doing what it is, massively incarcerating the Uyghur population, China is, quote, protecting stability in East Turkestan, or Xinjiang as they call it, and that is the greatest human rights for China in itself. So this is shameless that they've, in non-official way, admitted to what they're doing, yet trying to defend it as an act of human rights.
What exactly are these re-education centers? What does that entail exactly?
So at first, the re-education centers, they said that it's a political re-education center to where they, quote, re-educate you into being loyal to the communist Chinese state, to communist ideology, and to essentially Chinese rule. In these camps, they force you to denounce your identity, denounce not only your Turkic identity, but also your Islamic identity. And if you're Muslim, they force you to eat pork, drink alcohol. They force you to literally denounce Allah and say that to you, your God is Mao Zedong, your God is Xi Jinping, and your God is Karl Marx. That's who you worship. You say you give praises to them, and if you do not, then you are tortured severely to the point where many people have died, including people that I personally know. I have two uncles who refuse to denounce their identity, Islamic identity, or denounce their Turkic identity, to which the government, literally chopped off their legs because this is what happened in torture.
I see.
Something that's happening to all of us. In the other sense, they're forcing our women to marry Chinese men. I bring up Chinese men from inner China, from actual China, and they say, "Here, pick yourself out a wife." They line up our women, and our women are marry them. And if they refuse to marry them, then all of their family are tortured in these concentration camps, to where they have like literally no choice to save their lives, to save their families' lives. They are forced to pretty much say, okay.
These are, to say the least, shocking allegations. We've been following the story here at OGN, but for some people this is a bit new, and a lot of people would legitimately ask the question, why haven't we heard more about this in the media? Why isn't this covered more? Why are we hearing about this through alternative media outlets and just a mention here and there, and the United Nations seems to just be coming on board now? Why do you think that's the case?
Well, number one, China has controlled this region with like an iron fist. Getting access into the region, like getting information in and out of the region, is extremely difficult. Number two, unfortunately, it's for whatever reason, when it comes to the issue of East Turkestan, it's always it's always political. So unfortunately, up until now, there was no political interest for the international community because they have great ties with China. But now it looks like they finally realize that China is a threat not only to the Uyghurs and the Muslims of East Turkestan and the Buddhists of Tibet and other people, but also to international stability. So the fact that something like this is taking place in the 21st century, you cannot hide it for so long.
Now, you've also been active in trying to raise awareness in the Muslim communities, but you had an incident just this past Jumu'ah, this past Friday. What happened?
So during Ramadan, a few brothers here, we said, we need to bring more. We need to bring more spotlight onto the issue. The least we can do, is on Jummahs, go to various different mosques and ask the Imams, if they can at least do a prayer, do a dua for 1 minute on the situation, on the oppression of the Muslims in East Turkestan.
Yeah.
So I had went to this mosque and talked to the Imam before, and he said, yeah, inshallah, we know your situation. This was during Ramadan. He forgot. So the next Jummah, after khutbah again, I thought he would say something. He didn't. He saw me. So I moved up to the front, and right before we started prayer, after he was done with the khutbah, immediately I got up and I said, Ya Sheikh, could you please pray for the millions of Muslims in East Turkestan that are being forced to denounce their religion, that are being forced to eat pork and drink alcohol during Ramadan. There's no oppression like this in anywhere else in the Muslim world. Could you please pray for them? And he was very hesitant, and he's like, yeah, inshallah, after prayer, this and that. But then if you up front, they're like, yeah, Sheikh, please, could you pray for this, because we know this. Please don't let this brother down. So he did a quick prayer. And then after the prayer, I had to ask him, could you continue to do this every Jummah? And he's like, yeah, inshallah. Many Jummahs went by, and I thought, maybe it's because I'm sitting in the back, he doesn't remember, or he's very busy.
Sure.
So that Jummah, I went up front. I moved up front, and as I was walking, he whispered something to a man that was sitting right next to him. Yeah. And so that got up and before I even got to sit down, or before I even get to open my mouth, he's like, "Brother, can we please talk to you?" So in my head, I was like, "Okay, great. They're gonna finally ask me. I'm happy. They're gonna ask me about what the situation is and what they would like, for us to tell the audience for the
Yes.
congregation." But
Yes.
instead, he said, "Sir, could you please go to the back? We don't want you to ask him for a prayer like you did last time."
Okay.
And so I was like, "No, no, why?" He's like, "Please, brother, we can't be involved in politics." So I was like, "Okay, that's fine, but I'm still gonna sit up front and pray." And he's like, "No, brother, if either you go back or you're gonna or we're gonna ask you to leave." And I told him, "Why are you going to ask me to leave?
Hmm.
Why?" So he starts pushing me, tried to push me out of the door, and that's when I got a bit heated, and I asked the Imam, I was like, "Yeah, Sheikh, are you going to force me out just
Hmm.
because you thought I was going to ask you to pray for the millions of Muslims that are in concentration camps in East Turkestan, the millions of Muslims that are currently being raped, that are currently being tortured and killed in East Turkestan?"
Hmm. Now,
And
yes, I'm sorry. Go
they
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, and they kicked me out. The chef was like, "Can you please get him out?" And three, four people, next to the chef grabbed me and pushed me out. And they told the police, "If you come here again," they told the police to tell me that if I come here again to the masjid, I'm going to get arrested. Uh, and then on top of that, after I did the live video, a lot of people, a lot of Muslims, they came out and they're like, "Why are you protesting against Islam? What did Muslims do to you?"
I don't understand that. Why would they be asking you, why are you protesting against Islam?
So apparently they said that I asked them why, and they said that they like the mosque officials, the masjid officials. They said that they told the people that I was an anti-Muslim protester, and that's why they kicked me out.
Okay, I would like to go back just a little bit. You made mention that they said that that they were hesitant to make dua for the East Turkestani Muslims because they didn't want to get involved in politics. Is that what they said?
Yes.
Uh-huh. I'm confused. I don't quite understand that. Do they make dua for the Palestinian cause? Do they make dua for?
Yeah, they make dua for a lot of other places, Rohingya, which I don't understand. Whenever it comes to the Eastern Turkestan situation, every government, every Muslim country, they're silent. Even Muslim imams are silent. Muslim scholars are silent because for some reason, every time it comes into the situation of the Uyghur Muslims and the Muslims of East Turkestan, it's politics. But when it
Okay.
comes to something else, it's not politics.
Did you get a chance to actually speak one-on-one with the imam after the incident and to basically?
After the incident, I waited for the. Are you talking about the first time or?
No, the after you were ejected from the masjid.
No, I waited outside the masjid for an hour and a half to see if, I was hoping at least the imam would come out uh, and at least apologize.
Hmm.
But no, nothing like that happened. I waited an hour and a half, nothing like that happened. A lot of people came out and they said, "We're really sorry what happened in there. That wasn't right of them to do so."
Yes.
And a lot of people, a few people said, including a chauffeur at the Turkish embassy next door. He said, the imam here, this masjid is funded mostly by the and run by the Saudi government. So that's probably why they didn't want to pray for East Turkestan because of close economic ties with China. And at first, I was like, I didn't know. I didn't want to take that as an answer. I didn't think it would. I didn't think in the United States they would do something like this. Maybe in the Middle East, but in the United States, I didn't think so until like a lot of people, on Twitter, they heard stuff about this masjid, saying, "Oh no, this masjid is definitely under the influence of Saudi Arabia," stuff like that. So
I
I
see.
don't know what it is.
I see. I see. Can we ask what area was this masjid in?
So this masjid is in the Embassy Row in Washington D.C. It's on the streets. It's right next door, literally on the left side of the Turkish embassy in Washington, D.C. So it's where all the embassies of different countries are. It was built in like 1953, I believe, by with the help of various Muslim governments across the world that came together to build this masjid. But apparently, starting in the early 1980s, it's been pretty much dictated by the Saudi government, according to a few articles that I read and according to a few people that I spoke to on the ground.
Okay. All right, fine. Look, we're going to have to leave it there. We unfortunately are probably going to need your help going forward in the future to continue to understand the developing situation there in East Turkestan. Unfortunately, I think that this situation is not going to be solved overnight. We have been with Saleh Hudayr, and he is the International Affairs Officer of the East Turkestan National Awakening Movement. I am Bilal Abdul Kareem, and this is OGN. Jazakumullahu khaira. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.